Okay guys, today we're going to do some talking about anodizing. So what is anodizing? Anodizing, contrary to popular belief, is not actually coloring the aluminum. Anodizing is the process of using electrolysis, a electrolytic chemical process, to add an oxide layer to bare aluminum, and then you actually dye the aluminum oxide layer and then seal that, and that's how we get these cool side plates. So the rest of this video is just going to be telling you how to clean the aluminum, how to add the oxide, how to properly do it, how to safely do it, how to dye it, and then how to seal it so you can have great parts. Alright, so just to recap this whole process here, first thing you're going to do, clean the aluminum. Make it really clean. Second thing, create the oxide layer. You're going to do that in the acid. Be careful with that, that's dangerous. Step 3, you're going to dye it. Once it's dyed, after overnight or something, you're going to go to step 4. At that point, you're going to boil, seal, you'll have your parts. Okay, lads, when you anodize stuff, it's really important that you scrub everything off of it, and it's very, very clean. So what we've been using here to do our anodizing is a Scotch-Brite, which is sort of like a steel wool type thing, but not quite, and then some warm soapy water, and you pretty much just scrub it for about like half an hour. You really just want to get it clean, like give it a good scrub. Nice long time. Once you think it's clean, you should probably scrub it some more, because this is really the most important step of the process. Alright, so after you've cleaned it, it should really look very clean. Ideally, the water should not beat up on it, so if you look here, this is wet at the moment, and the water is not beating up it anywhere. So what we want to do now is actually attach this to something so we can dip it into the solution. The solution we're using here, make sure you wear your safety goggles around it. Yes, always good. Also, you really want to use some chemical resistant gloves here, because we are using sodium bisulfite, which is, you can find it at the pool store a lot. They call it pH down. Here's what we've been using. Is that we add about 20% by weight. I think this one's about 10 just because we added a bit too much water, but between 10 and 20 is good. So first we're going to attach this. We'll just rivet it.
Such a riveting process.
Quite. We'll edit it out.
So why are you riveting it?
We are riveting it because you don't want to just attach the electrode directly to the plate, because you'll have a mark on it. It leaves a mark. So you want to attach the electrode to something that you're not going to use. This is a piece of scrap aluminum. Generally use aluminum also while you're doing this, just because certain other metals, this is an acidic solution, they will
corrode.
Interactions that you probably don't want. So it's to be avoided. Also, you'll see I'm grabbing this with gloves. That is because this is really quite... It's important that you don't get fingerprints on it, because the fingerprints might show up in the anodizing, and that just makes it look a bit worse. So if you wear gloves, it really helps out with that. So we will rivet this. If you don't have rivets also, you could screw this in if you wanted to. Although I would recommend, again, using only aluminum materials, nothing with, say, iron or of that sort, just because that tends to almost dissolve in the acid, so that's never good. So once we're done here, we'll place our part into the sodium bisulfite solution. Check that bird out, lad. And then over here we have another piece of scrap aluminum. It's decently important that this be fairly large. It should be about the size of the part that you're anodizing. And then from here we will attach the cathode, which is the negative, to the part that we are not anodizing, and we'll attach the anode, that's why you call it anodizing, to just the positive end to the actual piece that we're going to anodize. We'll place this in the solution. You run it for, I think we did this one for about 5 hours, and then when you're done, you should have a piece that looks slightly golden brown, and that's really how you know it's done. That's actually an aluminum oxide layer, which is the anodized coating, and then from here you can soak it in a dye bath, and that's how you'll get the color there. Okay, we good.
So there are obviously some sick chemicals that you're using in this. You should definitely tell me what those are.
Oh, so this we use sodium bisulfate to actually make this. You can also use sulfuric acid. That's just a bit more dangerous. And what we're gonna make here is an aluminum oxide layer, and that's how we get this sick sheen to it. So that's the chemicals we've been using.
All right. So I remember you saying there's some kind of sealing process. What exactly is that? How do you do that?
Oh yeah, there's 2 ways of sealing it. That's just like making sure, because the aluminum oxide layer is very porous, that's how you can dye it. You have to make sure you close those pores, otherwise you get all sorts of other junk up in there, and that's not good. So you can either soak it in boiling water, but that's got to be really hot, and if you can't do that, you can use nickel fluoride bath. That's just a bit more dangerous again, it's another chemical going by, not necessarily good for the environment.
I see. So you're talking about safety there. So what are the safety, like, what do you have to do to make sure that you don't get, like, your hands burned off?
Well, always wear gloves whenever you're handling these things. At least while you're working with them. It's fine now because it's done. Always wear your safety glasses, and I'd recommend using sodium bisulfate over the sulfuric acid, just because sulfuric acid is nasty, or sodium bisulfate is something you put in your pool.
Sounds like a plan.
Don't lick battery chargers either. That's bad.
Okay.
Okay, so right now we are adding the part to the acid bath. Again, the acid bath is right now 10% by weight sodium bisulfite. Again, you can buy that at pretty much any pool store, pH minus, pH down. And an important thing here is making sure the part is entirely submerged. You really have to have the whole thing underwater, otherwise certain parts won't get anodized, and that's important too. So, Kathan, if you'll come over here, you'll see that we want to clip these to the side here, just so you have something to attach to. Because thank God. Okay, so we have it in the bath. Another important thing to note here, if you will look, neither the anode nor the cathode are touching one another. And that's very important, because if they are touching, you'll just get a current going straight through, and that's bad for a few reasons. One, your part won't anodize, and 2, you're just going to short circuit stuff out, and things will get hot, things might catch fire. It'll be bad. Don't do that. Make sure they're separate. If you can't make sure they're separate, like put something in there to physically separate them, a piece of plastic, something like that. And yeah, that's really just important here. So here, on the part that we're not anodizing, we have the negative lead. So we will attach that there. And on the other end, the anode, for the part that we are anodizing, is the positive end. And we'll just hook that to the other side. Okay, so now our setup's ready to go, and here we have our battery box. It's just a car battery charger, sort of old, but got 3 variable voltage settings, and for our purposes we've just been using 12 volts at a 2 amp current. If you want to look online, there is actual people have done calculations as to, based on the surface area of your aluminum and the alloy type, you can determine like what current you should be using to get the best oxide coating. So yeah, that's how we do that. And actually set up. One of the ways you'll be able to tell you've done the positive and negative, the anode and the cathode, correctly is that the part you are not anodizing should be bubbling, and that is, I do believe, hydrogen gas from the water decomposing, because when you're when you're anodizing, it's a electrochemical process, the equation which will be shown later in this video. And you're essentially just creating an oxide layer. And that does a few things. It makes your part stronger, a bit more brittle also. That's a trade-off you should be aware of. It looks nicer. You can color it. And generally it's just a good idea to have anodized parts. It makes them good. Alright, so these are our finished side plates. This is definitely some of the best quality we've had here. But even though these look super sick, it is not quite done yet, and we're actually going to have to soak these in boiling water for between like 20 minutes to half an hour to seal the dye and to make sure if you're touching it you don't get dye on your hands. But after that, you're done. And that's how you do anodizing. Alright, so here we have our side plate, and we have below us a very large pot of boiling water. Now for sealing the plates, it's very important that you use boiling water because it's actually a chemical process which physically seals the pores in the aluminum oxide, so in order for that to work, it's important that you keep it between 205 and 212 degrees Fahrenheit, or else it just takes too long and won't function properly. So we're just going to very slowly add this here so as to not remove too much dye, because that is not a goal of this process. Just as such, add the aluminum, and then we'll let that sit for half an hour, 20 minutes.
Sounds good to me.